Okay, we're on the lunch break on day 2 of the questioning of Bob Lambert at the Undercover Policing Inquiry. I'm joined by Eveline Lubbers, the Undercover Research Group, and Dave Morris. Bob Lambert has been questioned further on some of the reports that the officers he was managing had submitted. He was also questioned about a number of internal changes within the SDS, a lot about the litigation that HM123 Peter Francis brought against the Metropolitan Police and his disappointment with that. And what have you made of what he's had to say, Eveline?
It's very, very difficult to say anything that makes sense about what he said, because it was word salad, stuttering, denying, evading the question. David Barr got very sort of irritated with him at some point, because he said, "You're not answering the question, you're not answering the question, you're not answering the question." And then he still managed to, and there was a lot of passing the buck, like to undercovers who he was managing, who he was responsible for. He just put whatever they did in as their responsibility, as if there was no, he wasn't there, basically. So it was very frustrating, and it was very hard to listen to, because it's so difficult to unpick what he actually acknowledges or not.
I mean, he was very evasive. I mean, particularly, I noticed the whole thing about, was Peter Francis invited to the 40th anniversary or not? He said, no, he didn't invite him. Then he word saladed for a good 5 minutes before admitting, yes, he did invite him. I mean, it was just, it seemed like needless time wasting. He was grinning like an idiot during the whole time, finding it all very amusing that he was managing to waste so much time, it felt.
Yeah, the grinning is it's very specific. There were more times when he was seemed to be really enjoying himself, or remembering things that he was not going to share with us. It makes you think, what games are being played here.
Dave?
Yeah, I think the significant thing about the Peter Francis and the 40th anniversary of the SDS commemoration is that Peter Francis has testified about this being a really big deal. Because he was Peter Francis, while he was an officer, was praised to the skies about the great intelligence he was producing, which seemed to be mainly about family justice campaigns, which I'll come to in a minute. But he became increasingly disillusioned with the SDS. There was parts of the evidence today where there was a picket of a police station. Was it Kennington Police Station?
Yeah, it was resulting from the Brian Douglas.
The Brian Douglas family campaign, who was a black person who'd been killed by the police, I believe. And Peter Francis says in his evidence, that he looked around and he thought, what am I doing here? I mean, the family are here, they're commemorating their loved one. Why are we here? And, this is really out of order, basically. And apparently there was a conversation that Peter Francis said, where he says, we shouldn't be doing this. And somebody said to him, well, what should we do? What should the police do? And Peter Francis says, he said, stop fucking killing black people. Of course, Lambert conveniently doesn't remember that, and he doesn't remember all kinds of things he doesn't want to remember, but some things he remembers crystal clearly.
He's remarkably clear when he wants to be, isn't he? Remarkably
clear. I mean, I thought the best thing today, there wasn't a lot that was great, but was Barr, the counsel, put to him, a number of documents about family justice campaigns. Why are you reporting on this? And their line up to now has been, oh, well, because the, left-wing parties are, trying to exploit these campaigns or whatever. And that's our job, to sort of know what all these left-wing groups are doing. And the left-wing groups were just supporting, selling papers at events, whatever. And he put to him, why are you reporting on these? You're not the left-wing groups aren't doing anything reportable. The family justice campaigns aren't. And Lambert basically said, our customers want this information.
Yeah.
That means basically other sections of the police, security services, and whatever. And why do they want this completely irrelevant, non-public order kind of information? Because they're obsessed with the damage that family justice campaigns can do to the reputation of the police and the state. So I thought that was the best bit today so far.
Yeah, I think Barr's approach has changed a bit from the last time that Lambert appeared in front of him a couple of years ago. I think he's much more willing to cut him off. He's like stopped him dead. He's made him move on. He's demanded he answer the question. So many times, we've just had this word salad, this nonsense coming out of Lambert, and Barr has intervened and gone, no, this is the question.
Can I just jump back in?
Yeah.
I thought just about the 40th anniversary commemoration. That was what I was meant to be leading up to, was just to say that Peter Francis said this was a formative moment because he'd been previously praised to the heavens, but when he started questioning why was the SDS targeting Black family justice campaigns, suddenly he wasn't flavour of the month anymore. And we saw some documents today where, they're starting to slag him off and, possibly invent all kinds of allegations against him to kind of smear him as one of their own officers, and basically closed down his deployment. But the 40th anniversary thing, presumably previous SDS officers get invited or are encouraged, or they can go if they want to. And Lambert basically said, yes, you can go if you want to. But Peter Francis says in his evidence, suddenly that he was told he couldn't attend. In fact, he was told they'd voted not to let him go.
And blackballed him.
And apparently it was because of his disloyalty to the unit. And I believe when Peter Francis gave evidence, he said, because that was like the last straw, he'd been increasingly critical, and then he said, disloyalty, I'll fucking show them disloyalty. And that's when he decided he was definitely going to go whistleblower, and tell the truth about, as he saw it, about the unit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is clearly a very significant event that led to Peter Francis' whistleblowing. I mean, it was really strange the way in which Lambert was claimed not to remember all sorts of details, things which, like for example, with the exfiltration strategy that Peter Francis deployed. I don't quite know why Lambert pretended not to remember any of the detail around that. I mean, we were shown the Operation Hearn notes of the interview with him where he talked about the drug use, he talked about all sorts of things.
Lambert. That was the interview with, wasn't it?
There was a Webb. Yeah. We were shown lots of detail of things.
Yeah.
We saw the full statement from Webb, but we also saw the handwritten notes of the conversation with Lambert. And he was just no, I never said this, I never said that. He went through like half of it, sort of claiming that the Operation Hearn officers were lying, which seemed a bit over the top, really, given that it's handwritten notes from a meeting. I don't know why he felt the need to do that when it's part of it. It fits into his overall thing that this man was unreliable. But I mean, it's sort of like it all seems to be part of like Lambert's approach to this whole thing, where he just like plays down everything, whether it would suit his purposes or not. Really, it was very strange.
Yeah, it's like there's this strategy that in crisis management where you go deny, delay. There's 4 Ds. I can't remember the other one, but the D, those two is basically what he's doing. He's just sort of buying himself time or just wasting time of those 4 days that have been allocated to him, which is quite a lot. It's the most of what all managers get. Most of them only get half a day, and he's just wasting time with his word salads, and then and also using. You can see him using the time where he pretends not to remember, and producing stuttering circles of sentences. Of like, what am I going to say? What am I not going to say? There's no way I believe he doesn't remember, or he can't make phrases, or like the entire dementia approach he had last time. He tries to get back into that sometimes, but also you see him like with the weird smirks and smiles. He's really enjoying him, or like he seems to be enjoying himself. Like I said before, with memories that he's not willing to share. It's like really difficult to listen to, and to process, and to think like you're just wasting the inquiry's time, and that is gross.
Can I say, I think today it seems to have reverted back to last time he attended, where he was time wasting the whole time basically. But I think yesterday there was a lot of things achieved.
Accidentally, I felt in many cases.
Well, I don't know, because the documents were basically so strong that he couldn't deny everything. I mean, yesterday I made some notes. He basically accepted that the golden rule, which was that the security of the operations, the SDS, is the most important. That trumps everything else. So it doesn't matter whether it's sexual relationships, criminality, whatever, and that what he said yesterday was it goes right to the top. Basically, everybody with the sexual relationships, everybody was basically covering up to ensure that nothing ever got out publicly. And also accepted basically that SDS has no moral code, whatever they could get away with. What was the other thing?
I mean, there was an admission of institutional misogyny yesterday, which was a first, and it was something which I don't think he wanted to admit, but he felt he had to, given the way that it was presented to him by Bob.
Yes, I think also, and he did mention, of course, it's not just the women that were targeted; it's also the families of the officers who were exploited and lied to for basically to benefit the SDS. There was something today, just at the very end, I think it's worth mentioning.
Oh, the Christine Green stuff.
Well, it was basically that what did they do? They evaluated or decided to stop using the dead children's identities. Which they'd been doing for 20 years or whatever. But it seemed to be exactly the same time that Helen Steele was trying to track down John Dines, John Barker, as she knew him, to try and find his, death certificate.
Which
she found his death certificate, and Lambert kind of sidestepped it. But it seems to be that must have had a big, because of course that could have blown away the whole unit if Helen found John Dines, which is something that we've been pushing for to the inquiry to take really seriously. And obviously Helen's going to give evidence on Friday. But if Dines had been exposed during the McLibel case, which me and Helen fought against McDonald's, it would have been a global, scandal. Because we could have then called them as witnesses, and the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police to give evidence at the McLibel case, and lots of stuff would have unravelled. So that's just, I never really thought about this. That it seemed to coincide
very strongly,
Helen's efforts, with the ending of the practice of using deceased children's identities, which should never have happened anyway in the first place.
No, it was it really, when you kind of put the dates together, it seemed very clear that was the case. That initially HN26, coming in Christine Green, was going to be using a different name. That was shelved. She used and in the end she used a non something that hadn't come from a dead child's identity, which I mean it lines up very strongly, though of course Lambert can't recall. Even though it was like, well, whose decision would have been? Oh, yes, he would have been involved in the decision making, but he couldn't recall. And that, which obviously is it's been
Kind
a
of
theme throughout.
summarises the entire day so
absolutely,
far. Yeah.
absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to add about what we've heard so far today? We've got another. There'll be more questions this afternoon and tomorrow and the day after. So plenty more to come from Lambert. What little he ends up actually giving us, but. Please do continue to follow proceedings. If you're able to, we'll be doing more videos like this throughout the day. Please like, share, subscribe to the videos. It makes a huge difference for how